And my mother is a Ukrainian immigrant who came to this country when she was 15 as a survivor of a World War II slave labor camp. So my family, my dad's family's been here for 4 generations. My mother's family, I'm a first generation Ukrainian American.
Okay. Okay, that's something that was a mouthful.
Yes,
Um, yeah, it was. That's something else. Let me ask you, why did you decide to run for attorney general?
yeah, great question. So, the Attorney General of Pennsylvania is first and foremost the chief law enforcement officer of our Commonwealth. And I'm a district attorney. I was elected as the first Democrat ever elected district attorney in Delaware County since the Civil War, at least 4 years ago. So, and I was reelected in 2023. So, I believe I'm best qualified to actually do the work, to be our attorney general, and to fight for people like us all across the Commonwealth. And I'm really running because of the record I've built here in Delaware County, fighting for criminal justice reform, fighting wage theft, and most particularly fighting against gun violence.
What makes you unique?
A lot of things make me unique. That's a sort of a loaded question, but in terms of this race, I think what makes me unique is my experience. I'm the only elected prosecutor running on the Democratic side to be the chief law enforcement officer of the Commonwealth. So I every day do the work of supervising the investigation and prosecution of thousands of criminal cases, just like the Attorney General does. And I've also, used some of the powers that I share with the Attorney General to go after consumer fraud and those kind of cases as well. So, based on the work I've been doing for the last 4 years in Delaware County, I believe I can do even more for folks in all 67 counties if I get elected as your Attorney General.
All right, so let me ask you, your family background and where you come from. Is that what motivates you and gives you the passion that you have to become attorney general?
Absolutely. It's the only reason I've gotten into public life. And if you don't mind, I'll tell you a little bit more about my family. As I said, my mother came here as a 15-year-old Ukrainian refugee from a slave labor camp in Germany.
Mm.
Uh, she and her family had lived homeless on the streets of Europe for 6 years after the war. They were so desperate to come here.
Mm.
Unfortunately, my mother only got to live the American dream for a short period of time. She met a tall, handsome soldier home on leave, my dad. Had a beautiful daughter, my older sister, but then she died at 26 in childbirth with me, a tragedy that I've carried my entire life. And Kendall, the way I've learned to deal with that guilt that I felt about my mother's death was to try to make my life count, to make a difference. So, in my faith, when I see her and finally hear her voice in the next life, I want to be able to tell her that I've done good work with the sacrifice that she's given me, the gift of life. And so I've been involved in public service almost my entire adult life, trying to make a difference in this world. My dad faced a crisis after my mom died that really would have broken a lesser man, because he had dropped out of high school to join the army during the Korean War. So when my mom died, he had no job, no education, and 2 small babies at home.
Mm.
What what got us out of poverty was the Social Security program. We got death benefits from my mother, but what got us into the middle class was when my dad got a union job. So I've been spending all my life trying passionately to fight for all of us to get the same shot at the American dream that my family struggled to finally fulfill in my lifetime. And I think government can play a role in that. I think the reason Democrats, fight so hard for government programs is we believe that government can and should make a positive difference in the lives of its citizens. And that's what's motivated me ever since I was a young man and first got interested in public service.
But even as being a Democrat, you still have to serve all of the people. That's correct, right?
Absolutely, and I'm proud to do that. Our political system, like our criminal justice system, we believe in an adversarial process. That if both sides make the strongest argument they can, the truth will come out, and we'll all be better off. But once you win office, the first thing you realize is all those people who didn't vote for you, they're also your constituents.
Mm.
And in my case, they're people that I have to make sure don't become victims of crime. And if they do, I have to stand up and defend their rights.
So what would you consider to be one of your greatest strengths?
Really, my ability to bring people together. I never want to be the smartest person in any room. I've learned early in my career that a lot of people fail as public officials because they want to show everybody that they're the smartest person on the earth. If I'm the smartest person in the room, we're in big trouble. But what I do is I bring people together around solutions. So, just to give you an example, in my one city in Delaware County, it's the city of Chester. That's where William Penn actually landed and all of Pennsylvania began. And it's the city my mother first lived in as a free person when she got to the United States. But it had become one of the most violent small cities in America over the last generation. I brought the community and the police together around a strategy that's reduced gun homicides by 68%, and the number of shootings are down by 72% over that same 4 year time period, which is allowing people who are living in Chester now to live their American dream. And that's what I think I really do well, which is try to bring people together around common solutions, evidence-based programs whenever we can find them, about public safety or standing up for consumer rights, and to move the society forward for all of us.
How do you feel about, here's a loaded question, abortions?
Mhm. So I just I'm for women's reproductive health. I absolutely believe women have a constitutional right to an abortion. Kendall, as I mentioned, my mother died in childbirth with me, so it's always been an emotional issue.
Hmm.
I believe, because of my own personal experience, that women need absolutely the best reproductive health care we can give them, but we also have to trust them to make the right decisions about their own bodies. Too many tragedies can happen if we don't. So, as district attorney here, when the Dobbs decision was before the U.S. Supreme Court, I signed a legal brief along with Attorney General Shapiro and District Attorney Krasner of Philadelphia to oppose that decision, taking away a woman's right to choose.
Hmm.
After it came down, I took a public pledge in Delaware County that I would never prosecute a woman for what I know to be her constitutional right to privacy and abortion and reproductive health. And I'm taking that position all the way. I will continue that same pledge when I'm Attorney General of Pennsylvania.
That's very good. You have a fantastic story, and it seems like you have a fantastic family. You know,
Thank,
um,
thank,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I just want to say thank you. That was very kind of you.
Yeah, it seems like you have a real good story to tell. I'd like to hear a little bit more about your family because they really seem to have a story to tell. I mean, coming from Germany, I happen to live in Germany. I lived in Germany for about 3 years, and I lived in a place called Bremerhaven, which you
Okay.
may know that's that. So
Yeah.
that's when I was in the military. You know,
My dad was an MP in the Army way before you, in the 50s, when we were still occupying parts of Germany. And, he loved it. He loved Stuttgart. But he was essentially the local police department over there. And, I've not been to Germany yet. I've not been to Ukraine. But someday when I get a chance to stop serving the public, I intend to travel a little bit more and see these beautiful places. Um, and I have two 18-year-old children of my own. So, the next generation is already coming to fruition. So, my family has really struggled, Kendall. After my mother died, my dad had a really hard time, but he was a good man, and he never wanted to leave his children, and he did whatever it took to try to make our lives better. And you can't ask for more than that from a father.
yeah, I was gonna get there. I got somebody sent me a text, and they like to know a little bit more about your education and your career as a U.S. attorney. Well, you haven't gotten there yet, but your career as a district attorney.
Yeah. So I took a long path to education. I didn't start college till I was 29 years old. I went to a school called Edison State College. Again, nobody in my family. I'm still the only person, the only Stolzheimer in my family who's ever graduated from college. I hope my children, they're on a path to change that. But and I didn't go to law school till I was 34. I'm sort of a late bloomer in that regard. I didn't. Nobody in my life told me that education was really a pathway for me to get to where I wanted to be. And it took me a while, but I figured it out. Went to, I actually did mostly independent study to earn my college degree.
Mm-hmm.
and then went full-time to Temple Law School. And while I was there, I realized the only course I really liked in the law was about criminal justice, because it was about people and values and principles and the theory of justice and how we achieve that for people. And so I became a prosecutor right out of law school as an assistant district attorney here in Delaware County, and then became a federal prosecutor, an assistant United States attorney in the Eastern District, which is 9 counties from Philadelphia up to Northampton out to Lancaster. And it was a wonderful experience, but I also wanted to do other work in public service. So I ended up being a deputy state treasurer for 4 years when Joe Trisella was our state treasurer.
Mm.
And then I ran for this office 4 years ago and was lucky to win.
Oh, it seems like you were more than lucky to win. It seems like you have an extensive background as to what you do. Let me ask you, if someone wanted to get into doing what you were doing, what advice would you give them, and what direction would you lead them or tell them to go?
First of all, I would love to see people get into this. I think we have forgotten to teach young people that public service is the way to make the world the way they want it to be. I see it in my own children. You know, they complain about the world, and I say, well, get in the game. You got to get in the game. I still think a legal education is one of the most valuable educations you can get. It teaches you a way to think. Even if you don't end up being a practicing day-to-day lawyer, it's going to remarkably change the way you understand issues, break them down, and articulate answers. But I would start by being a prosecutor. I really believe that you have more power day one as a prosecutor than you're probably ever going to have in your life working in the corporate world, to affect people's lives. We get to charge or not charge people for crimes. We get to negotiate plea deals that we think are fair and just. As district attorney, I am both an advocate for victims, but I'm also the minister of justice for people in Delaware County. And I get to weigh those two roles, and my assistants get to do the same. So the best way to do the kind of work I'm doing is to get in the game, work your way up like I did, and then have people help you figure out the path moving forward. But I think public service is still the most honorable profession there is. And I hope that more and more young people get involved.
All right. Well, they gotta get out and vote. That would be a good way to start.
Start one, exactly.
And this is the time in the season, so it's a good idea to get out and vote. Let me ask you about your children. You say you have, what do you have, 2 children?
I have boy-girl twins. Yeah, they're a really efficient way to have children. It's also was a lot of work.
Did you say efficient? An efficient way to have children?
It's the efficient way to do it until now, Kendall, because now they're both going to go to college at the same time, and the old man's going to have to come up with some tuition money. Um, but it was, yeah, my wife is a saint, because that first year, when anybody who's listening who's got twins knows what this is like, but you're just completely lost. My wife didn't know what day of the week it was. She used to just keep a chart with the baby's names on it and who pooped and who ate and at what time and all of that kind of stuff, what time the diapers got changed.
Hmm.
But, the good thing about it, because we were sort of older parents, is they have a friend for life. The thing that makes us close to our siblings is shared experiences. Well, my son and daughter have shared everything since they were born. And I know they're going to be, close their entire lives. And that's really reassuring, even though they're probably going to go to much different places to go to college.
They're going to follow in your path and go into law?
My son has been saying that for a while, but recently my daughter even said that she might want to be a lawyer, which I think she'd be fabulous. I think they both would. My son is sort of naturally argumentative, so I think he's built for it. My daughter is certainly the politician of the family, and I can see her being very successful in whatever she does. As parents, you just want them to find something that calls to them. And I think we're still a ways away from that. I'm hopeful when they get to college and they get in a little different environment, something will pull at them. But we're all parents. We're all subject. We've all grown up with our own parents and see the influence they have on them. So I'm hopeful that they'll at least devote part of their lives to some level of public service, because you mentioned it earlier. The baseline for us as citizens is voting. But I think we should all be politically active at some point. as well. And if you can actually devote your life to some public service, um, my hat's off, because I think it's the most enriching career you can have.
Wonderful. Let me ask you: do you prosecute police officers as well?
We do when they violate the law. And unfortunately, we've had to do that in Delaware County. We had a terrible incident 2.5 years ago now, where outside of a football game, two juveniles started shooting at each other.
All right.
Officers returned fire and accidentally, uh, shooting at the wrong target, they accidentally killed a little girl, 8-year-old girl, whose memory, is still with us. And we had to prosecute the officers. And what they want is like everybody else in the system. They want to be treated with the same respect and dignity and due process. And we did it. We held them accountable, and they pled guilty to recklessly endangering a bunch of folks, multiple counts of it. And at the end of the day, the community came together. In fact, the siblings of the little girl who was killed asked me in court if they could go over and hug the officers and could let them know that they forgave them. They knew it was an accident. And there was like a moment of one of the most healing moments I've seen in a courtroom. Everybody is subject to the law, even former president, by the way. We're
Yeah.
all, yeah, yeah. No matter what he may think or hope,
Right.
um, that's one of the great things about America is we're all held accountable to the law. There's no kings or queens here.
Yeah, there's no kings or queens here. Well, that's why I do have a lot of respect for rules and regulations. So we that as your job, you're kind of helping to keep those rules and regulations in place. You know, you are an investigator. Is that not true?
Well, not me as much. I'm really the lawyer, but I've got 40 detectives who investigate cases. So the way it really works is local police do most of the arrests and those kind of bringing people to justice. That part of it. But my detectives are either doing their own individual investigations or they're helping our prosecutors button up cases while they're at the courtroom. And we have, just so you know, we have what's called the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force.
All right.
So for 25 years now, Delaware County has housed a task force helping stop child predators, from victimizing our children. And we work with about 100 different law enforcement agencies throughout the Commonwealth. So that work takes up a lot of our detective bureau downstairs. But I have 40 of the best detectives I've ever worked with, and every once in a while they let me help out a little bit. But generally, the prosecutors are the people who go into court and talk about and explain what the investigators have done.
You said they let you help out some.
Every once in a while, they call me boss, which is always nice to hear. But I'm pretty clear about my limitations. I'm not a trained police officer. I don't carry firearm, and God bless them all who do. But the great thing is we get to be, as prosecutors, we get to work with our investigators. It's a lot more prevalent in the federal system because we're usually working with the case from the beginning before we even charge it. But as a state prosecutor, generally you wait until you only get the case after it's already been charged by local police. Um, but like we just had a terrible, tragic massacre happen out here last week or so. You probably remember or might have saw, but I was on the news a lot because we had somebody kill 5 members of his family and shoot 2 police officers who were coming to try to rescue the members of the family while he was burning down the building around them.
Wow.
And I was on scene working with the police and the medical examiner, understanding exactly what we were doing to try to find out to the best we can what happened, and then be able, hopefully, to relate that to the public because they have a right to know.
Along speaking about the public, so some of the people, I guess, from Pennsylvania were part of the insurrectionists. How would you prosecute them, and
Yeah,
why?
yeah, we can't. So the feds do that. What they usually, whenever a crime is prosecuted, where it happens. So if you notice, Donald Trump is going to be held accountable by federal prosecutor, a special counsel named Jack Smith, and he's prosecuting him in D.C. for the January 6th stuff, and in Florida for the documents case that he took documents back to Mar-a-Lago. So unless an incident happens in your jurisdiction and you've got a law that allows you to prosecute it, I prosecute state laws, not federal. There's a U.S. attorney in the Eastern District who prosecutes violations of federal law. And sometimes they overlap. Some bad acts can be both a federal crime and a state crime. In that case, we work together to see who should take the case. But yeah, what Jack Smith is doing as special counsel on behalf of the U.S. Department of Justice, where I used to work, I think they're doing the best that they can to try to hold everyone accountable who was there on one of the worst days in American history since the Civil War.
Yeah, it was. It was a horrible day, especially for anybody who's a true patriot. That was a horrible day.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I mean, the peaceful transfer of power is a bedrock principle of our democracy. It's one of the things that set us apart from all these other countries in the world who are fake democracies. And for Donald Trump to be able or to attempt to overturn that principle of our democratic regime here is just horrible. And I believe he will be held accountable. I don't believe the president has immunity from criminal acts that he commits while president. The U.S. Supreme Court gets the final say under our system. Although it's interesting, there's nothing in the Constitution that says the Supreme Court gets to decide to determine what's constitutional or what's not constitutional. That's just a custom that's been developed in the law over the last 200 years. But this is a long way from over, those cases. And, you know, we have to go, we as a society have to come back from that. We have to bounce back. We have to get back to having two responsible parties of government. As I mentioned earlier, you know, both our criminal justice system and our democratic system in the United States are based on the adversarial system. That if both sides have good lawyers and they argue it out well, we're going to find justice in the criminal justice system or the best person to hold office in the political system. Right now, we only have one party that's really responsible and wants to govern, and that's the Democratic Party. And you know, we need a real functioning Republican Party again. That's my view.
Okay, let me ask you a question. You know, this fentanyl has been, you know, running kind of crazy.
Yep.
Is there a mandatory sentence for that, for the sale and distribution?
Yeah, there are mandatory minimum sentences. You know, especially in the federal system, there's more of that based upon the weight of the drug. We've gotten away from it in the state system, but what we do instead is we have sentencing guidelines that can be increased by the legislature, which is actually a better way of doing this, which is to say, if you're selling X amount of fentanyl, you should get a higher sentence based on the guidelines instead of just a 5-year mandatory sentence. But the fentanyl is everywhere. It's replaced heroin as a drug of choice. We took $20 million worth of it off the streets of Delaware County last year, the highest record amount ever. And you know, we're using every tool in the toolbox. At the same time, I sued the opioid distributors civilly and got a big settlement to bring money home for people with substance abuse disorders, so they don't get victimized by the drug dealers who are selling them fentanyl. And also decriminalized marijuana for personal use in Delaware County. I think it's a more rational way of looking at what used to be called the war on drugs and is now really a war on addiction.
War on certain people, certain of ethnicity. That's kind of what it seemed like at times. In the neighborhood that I grew up in, it was, I could never understand this, that someone would get arrested for crack cocaine and they give them like 10 years, this large amount of time. And then you would have someone from a different neighborhood who would get caught with cocaine and he may end up in a rehab. And both cases may be similar, or even the people that were involved as far as their record. Neither one of them had a record. They're pretty much the same, but one would go to rehab and the other one would go to jail.
Yep, it was wrong, and it was done by legislators across this country in reaction to the epidemic of crack cocaine, and I think everybody recognizes now how unfair and inequitable that is. And we've got to hold everyone accountable to the same standard. But we also have to. I think we realize, Kendall, after the opioid epidemic, that everyone has someone in their life who has suffers from substance abuse disorder. And we all, when we personalize it like that, we realize a lot of these folks need help. The professional drug dealers, let's take care of them through the criminal justice process. But we're not helping ourselves as a society if we're not also giving treatment to the people who need it. We partnered with Attorney General Shapiro here in Delaware County, something called the LETI program, Law Enforcement Treatment Initiative, which is where we're working with our police to say, if you come into contact with somebody for whatever reason on the streets of Delaware County and they look like they have a substance abuse disorder, and you ask them if they'll go to treatment and they say yes, take them. Immediately take them to treatment. We don't care about the charges. But that might be the one moment when they're willing to go into treatment. You can turn that person's life around. So I think everyone in law enforcement is sort of getting into the new way of thinking about this, and we as a society have as well. And there's still more work to be done.
Yeah, that goes along with the mental health issue, the 988. How are you on that?
Well, this is one of the biggest problems in law enforcement, and we just sent a letter to Governor Shapiro, all the DAs in Pennsylvania, begging for more mental health services. We need more money. We need more resources. Department of Justice in 2006 did a study which said that 40% of people in local jails had a diagnosable mental health issue. So the biggest change in law enforcement over the last generation has been all of these people. If you remember, we used to have these state hospitals that a lot of people were maybe inappropriately housed in, but now we don't have them at all. And they're ending up in the criminal justice system. And it's bad for them, and it's bad for you and me as taxpayers, because if they're just recycling through the criminal justice system, we're paying to house them but not cure them. And so the initiative is really called Justice Reinvestment Initiative. It's to say, look, let's not rely so much on incarceration, but try to reprogram those savings into programs like things that'll help people with mental health issues. But I got to tell you, we don't have enough providers right now either. And so we need people to step up, be a mental health provider, be a substance abuse counselor. The crisis has never been worse for those services, the need. But and everybody in law enforcement, I'm telling you, particularly in the Southeast, we all recognize it. We just got our Congresswoman here, Mary Gay Scanlon. She gave us some federal funds to start a mental health unit that is embedded in our largest police department. And serves the second largest community as well. And they're out there right now, working with police officers to help people who we're coming into contact with who have mental health issues and trying to make sure that they get handed off to them. But I hear it every day from the police. What are we doing? What more resources can we have for people with mental health issues?
All right, so let's kind of get to the nitty gritty, as they say. If someone wanted to get in contact with you or vote for you, where do we go?
Yeah, first of all, it's Jack Stolzheimer, and I am one of 5 candidates running. But you can search the web, and it's jack4ag.com. I think my staff did that because I need to be able to remember it. So just one word, Jack, F-O-R-A-G. And you'll find out all about the work I've done in Delaware County, my personal story, and what I want to do for you as your attorney general.
Yeah, I love that video you made. The Jack.
Great?
No, the Jack Knows video.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that was that tickled me. I thought it was kind of cool.
When they first came up with it, I thought it was the hokiest thing in the world, but people love it, and it's sort of grown on me. Yeah, you don't know Jack.
Yeah, you don't know Jack, but
Yep.
You know Jack.
Well, I hope more people get to know Jack, because listen, this is all about public service, and I'm just offering myself to people because I really believe I can do this job for you. If you find someone better, that's probably great. But I think based on the record of work I've done in Delaware County, the person I am, I don't think you will. I think I can be your best attorney general since Josh Shapiro anyway. I want to fight for everyone who's on this call and everyone in this region.
All right. Well, you sound like a good candidate. I've listened to other candidates and they sound pretty good too. So what I can say is the best man win, right?
Or woman.
Or woman. That may be true too. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Jack. And I love to say your last name, but I'm not going to because I'm not going to make a fool of myself. Okay. So
Don't you worry.
we're gonna say thank you very much for coming on. This is GenesisRadio.com. If you like what you heard, give us a call at 888-304-4401. And again, thank you, young man. Love to have you, and maybe we'll have you on in the future.
You got it, pal. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah. No, peace. We're out.